If you're a college student, you really gotta know how to put together a half-decent resume. How are you guys doing today? My name is Apple, and today we are filling in the financial gap between schools and the real world. And today is just a resume basics kind of day. So what we're gonna be talking about in this video is what is a resume, why are resumes important, and what does your resume actually need, what's gonna make it stand out and make it look like you actually know what you're doing, what you're talking about, and make it look like an employer is actually going to want to hire you. All right, so without further ado, leave a like, subscribe, let's get into it. So first off, what is a resume? Well, a resume is essentially what you are going to give to somebody looking to hire. So it's usually going to go along with a cover letter, and a cover letter is just a customized letter, basically why you're qualified for this job, what you would bring to this job, stuff like that. But your resume is going to be the thing that sort of gives an employer an idea of who you are and what you're bringing to the table, and it's just going to be a generic thing. Generally, you don't change your resume from one job to another when you're applying. So if you're applying for like 3 different jobs, you're going to generally give them all the same resume. If they're all the same type of position, all the same stuff would be relevant. You're going to give them the same resume. However, the cover letter is going to differ from employer to employer. So an employer is going to ask you for either an application, a resume, or both. So a lot of employers, it depends on where you're trying to work. If you're trying to work at a restaurant, they're probably going to want a resume. But if it's like a fast food joint, then it might just be an application process. But I mean, really depends on your employer, where you're trying to work. So definitely ask them if they require one or both of those. And essentially, a resume is just an overview of your life relevant to that position. So it's just going to tell that employer, what have you done so far in your life that is going to be relevant to what you would be doing at this job. So what prior jobs have you had that would be related to this job that you're trying to get? So if you're trying to apply as a server to a restaurant, have you been a server before? Have you been a host before? Have you been a cook before? Just have you had any restaurant experience? Or maybe any internships that you've had. So if you're trying to apply for like a marketing position, have you worked in marketing before? Have you had maybe a marketing internship when you were in school? All of these things are going to be on your resume, and they're going to be very important for your employer to get an idea of what kind of experience you have, what kind of stuff you're bringing to the table, and how much they're going to have to sort of train you in, how much you're actually going to be competent in this stuff already. And it's essentially going to be your first impression with your potential employer. Everybody knows the importance of first impressions, and this one is no different. So you really got to try to make that good first impression with your employer with your resume, because it's going to be the first thing they read about you, the first thing they see. Maybe you come in and shake their hand when you're turning in your resume, so they get that impression of you, but really their first impression of you is going to be through your resume. So you got to make a good first impression and come across as a competent, decent human being in your resume. So that's what a resume is, just a way to convey who you are and what you're bringing to the table at this position. So why is it important? Obviously, like we said, first impressions are going to matter. So your potential employer is going to get a lot out of that first impression, so you're going to want to make sure it counts, all right? Resumes are generally used to weed out unqualified or unfit people for the position. So again, if you're applying to, say, a marketing position and your previous job experience is working at McDonald's for a month, they're probably going to weed you out pretty quickly based on the lack of experience in your resume. So it's going to show the employer that you care enough for the position, because if you put enough time in to craft a nice looking, decent resume, it's going to show them that you actually care about this position, that you're willing to put in some effort to apply rather than just slapping together a piece of paper that says I worked at X, Y, and Z for a year. There's my resume. No, it's going to show them that you actually care enough to go through with this whole process and put something together that actually makes you stand out and sound like you're qualified for this position. Additionally, a resume is going to show that you know what you're doing. So again, with that experience, it's going to show that you know what you're doing. It's going to show that you know how to put a resume together. And if you don't actually know what you're doing, a resume is sort of a way to allow you to fake it and just sort of come across as you know what you're doing, even though you might not. So it's really crucial to perfect that resume if you want to have any chance at scoring an interview with that potential employer, because generally resumes don't get jobs, interviews do. So what I mean by that is an employer isn't just going to read your resume and say, boom, you're hired, come in tomorrow and get started on Monday. No, that's not how it's going to work. They're going to read your resume, they're going to say, this person seems pretty qualified, they seem like a pretty mildly intelligent human being, maybe I could get them to do something here. So then what they're going to do is they're going to have you in for an interview just to see if you are competent, if you can hold a conversation, if you actually know what you're talking about, if you'd be a good fit for the workplace, all that good stuff is going to happen in an interview. So your resume is really just a way to get yourself an interview. It's not really a way to get yourself a job, because the resume is just a way to basically get you to the next step, which is the interview, and the interview is the way to get you to the job. So what does a resume actually need? What do you need to put on this resume in order to get you to that step of getting an actual interview? So the first thing you're going to need on that resume, obviously, work experience. So that's the first thing that's going to be the number one thing that your employer is going to look at. What kind of work experience or like internship experience do you have in the past? Now the question you want to ask in order to establish this is, what relevant things have you done to this position? Like, again, if you're applying for a marketing position, you're probably not going to want to include the fact that you used to mow lawns in the 8th grade. That's probably not going to be super relevant to this marketing position. I mean, maybe if you started your own like lawn care business and you had to market it yourself, you could maybe tie that in somehow. But I mean, really, you're going to want to include stuff that is relevant to the position that you're applying for. And within that, you want to include, again, how long you were at that position, whether you were promoted at all, whether you made progress throughout that organization, because employers want to see basically they want to see your whole work, past history, whatever. They want to see it all in a story on your resume that they can sort of connect the dots and see sort of how you have grown over the years. They want this to be sort of a roadmap of where you have been and sort of allow their institution to be where you're going. So they sort of want to see where they fit into the story of your work experience, your work history, whatever. Okay, so that's the first one, work experience. Next thing you want to include is your education, all right? So if you graduated from college, let them know where you went, obviously, what you majored in, what you minored in. I mean, it's pretty straightforward as far as education goes. You could include your high school, maybe. I mean, it depends. If you have a college degree, they're probably not going to care that much about your high school degree. I mean, maybe if you went to the same high school, you could have like some connection there. But other than that, they're not really going to care about your high school education, what you really did there. Next thing, number 3, is accomplishments. So put these in chronological order, guys. The number one thing people mess up on here, they don't put their accomplishments in chronological order. So don't lead with you won your 5th grade spelling bee. Like, no employer is going to care about that. They're not going to care that you won your 5th grade spelling bee. They're going to care what you were recognized for in college, what kind of awards you received, any scholarships, any like contests that you won, any like extracurriculars that you were doing, any clubs that you were in that you were like president of. All of these things. They don't care about your like 8th grade like, I don't even know, talent show. No, like tell them stuff that's relevant, that's recent. And you can put the 5th grade spelling bee on like at the very, very end if you really need to, but like nobody cares about that. So yeah, those are the 3 main categories of stuff you need on your resume. I mean, beyond that, there are a bunch of templates that you can find online. I mean, even Google Docs just has a bunch of templates. But again, if you are a college student, there are probably a bunch of resume workshops that you could attend. I know there's one in my dorm actually tomorrow. So that's a cool resource there. And if you are on a college campus, there's a good chance that there's resume workshops at least like once a week. So you just gotta find those, probably through the business school. Or the advising office would be a good place to turn to find some of those resources. All right, guys? So if this video did provide any value for you guys, be sure to leave a like. If you haven't subscribed yet and you made it all the way to the end, be sure to do that. And if there's anyone you think could benefit from this video, please do share this with them as well. Anyways, I will see you guys tomorrow, and until next time.